Hawaii is a really, really important place. The people are really important. And we come at this with a kind of sense of urgency that Hawaii's social, economic, and political systems were really kind of spiraling out of control. Less and less focus on things like planning, urban planning. Important projects get derailed because of politics. The continually spiraling cost of living, the fact that at the time, more than 90% of our food and the things that we needed for survival had to basically be voted in, that we didn't really have any kind of self-sufficiency here. Number of people who were without shelter is growing, and a lot of them are Native Hawaiians, already beginning to spend a huge amount of money on the prospect of this rail project coming through Honolulu. There are deep sort of cultural divisions that are also political, really powerful Hawaiian sovereignty movement, really an effort to inspire self-government again, and among many of us, a desire really to sever our political relationships with the United States. And this is back in, this is more than 10 years ago. And this is a movement that's been going on movement that had been going on really since the 1980s. We have environmental problems that are peculiar to an island nation or an island state that have to do with, climate and weather and the quality of water and ocean. I mean, really, we are at the mercy of global warming and global climate change in ways that other places in the United States may not be. So all of these are conversations that we're having, and we realize, we should just write a book. It was 2009, we're coming up on the elections. 2010, we would be electing a governor in Hawaii, and and a legislature. We should consult with all of the people that we know and have come to know through years and years of scholarship and political and community activism. We should contact the people that we know who know a lot about different subjects that are really vital, that present really vital issues for Hawaii and for Hawaii's future. Hawaii's entry into sort of that modern world begins with first Cook and then a number of Europeans and Americans coming here through the latter part of the 18th and into the 19th century. And the result of that, the hugest impact, is an almost immediate and very dramatic drop in the population. Really, we are looking at hundreds of thousands of people dying of introduced diseases, to which Kanaka Maoli, Oiwi, our people, had no immunity. And this trajectory basically drops the population from anywhere from 500 to 800,000 at the point of contact to less than 40,000 by the end of the 19th century. In about 120 years, we have somewhere between a 92 to 95% depopulation rate. The leadership, the chiefs, the ali'i, and the maka'ainana choose to modernize. We really went, in the space of decades, from a country that was steeped in this long traditional history of chiefly leadership and management of our resources, no capitalism, virtually no trade, right? A subsistence economy, very, very stable. And we went from that to being almost unrecognizable from any other 19th century modern country by the 1860s, 1870s. We had opera houses downtown, we had buildings, we had a plantation economy, And this is the thing. I mean, the, the native Hawaiians were trying to manage all of this and also manage the ambitions of some of the haole who had come to live here, some of them missionaries and the descendants of missionaries, who really had become very powerful and very rich because of sugar. Business people and lawyers decided to basically take that power away from the native Hawaiian government. And so there were two major events in 1887 when Kalakaua was king, and then in 1893 when Liliuokalani was queen, in which this group of business people, attorneys, and basically backed by the friendship of the United States, moved to basically cripple the monarch and take power for themselves. Now, the United States, after essentially pretending that it didn't have anything to do with those takeovers, from 1893 until 1898, eventually the United States territorialized Hawaii. People use the word annexation, but that's not a correct word. To annex territory, according to the United States Constitution, you basically have to submit this to the Senate, and you have to get a 2/3 majority vote. And they were never able to do that. They tried several times. In 1897, they submitted this. This is during the McKinley administration. The Senate was entertaining a vote to annex Hawaii, and they received petitions from people in Hawaii, 2 petitions, equaling close to 37,000 signatures in all. Men, women, children, old people. And in those petitions, they were asking the United States not to annex us, that we were an independent people. We had our own country. We had been recognized by the United States and Great Britain and France in 1843. We had multiple treaties with all kinds of nations: Belgium, Japan, the US, the Netherlands, Britain, France, the United States, everybody. We had multiple treaties with them. We acted like an independent country. We were no different than any of those other countries in the eyes of international law. And yet, the United States has been able to pretend, and I'd say successfully pretend, that they have some legitimate claim to these islands. And, you know, as a historian, you know, and as someone who has studied this for many years, I can say that the United States has only one claim to these islands, and that is that they have taken this over by force. You know, you can think about in every part of this history, terrible, terrible things happen to us. That depopulation, you know, literally tens of thousands of people dying within, you know, a 2 or 3 year span, families being ruined, the whole economic system really basically falling apart. And yet our people don't lose hope. They look to the things that they are learning about the outside world, about democracy, about constitutional government, about literacy, about the great many things that are present in the world, and they reach for them. They reach for them. And they say, you know, if we have to change to survive, we will do that. We are here to protect Hawaii, to protect this land, this aina. And the interpretation of how you do this changes constantly. I mean, very few people believe that we can actually go back to traditional subsistence practices with the numbers of people that we have here and the reality of the world we live in. But all of us believe that Hawaii can be more self-sufficient. All of us believe that our economy can be more sustainable and resilient. All of us believe that the educational system can change and be more accommodating of typical typical Western ideologies and ideals and values. All of us believe that, and we know that this can happen because we're seeing it happen. And that brings me maybe to the final words about it. This book was really an attempt to get people to take these elections seriously and to start asking people who are running for office really hard questions about what they intended to do to change the trajectory we were on. Because if you read through this, you'll see that some of the themes that we have in common are that we have come to some really difficult places. Numbers of people we incarcerate, the state of our schools, whatever the topic was. All of these were areas of crisis, and we demanded, we wanted people to start demanding change. You know, most of the people I know that I like are Democrats or progressives. We don't truck with Republicans, and there's a really good reason for that. It's a whole, 40-year period, 50-year period between the takeover and statehood, really, where the old guard were all Republicans, and they controlled land and the plantations and the banks and everything, and they were racist, and they held on to power. So that's one of the reasons why Republicans are not popular here. There's a long memory. But the Democrats are not, they're not changing anything. They come into office, they inhabit the House for 2 years, or the Senate for 4 years, or the governor's mansion for 8 years, and they don't change a thing. Everybody talks about how we can't continue to have more and more tourists, but every year we have more and more tourists. Everybody talks about the need to balance military needs and desires with what is good for the community, and we don't hold them accountable. Everybody talks about the need to somehow or another slow the pace of land speculation, and we do nothing about it. Everybody talks about the need to protect agriculture, and just this past, in the last 2 or 3 years, the state government basically approved the end of one of the last agricultural areas on this island, and the awarding of a new subdivision, housing subdivision. So there is no real legacy of change or challenge in the Democratic Party either. And so, you're looking at these two choices. Nobody wants to go back to Republicans ever. But the Democrats do nothing. Which then again makes you realize why Hawaiian independence seems so attractive to more and more people.